Okay, so today is going to be a review day, and I've got a lot to cover, so bear with me. In the stream, you'll notice at the top of the screen, oops, that's not the one. Second one down. In the instructions for today, this is a checklist of everything we've done so far. In order to see this website, you need to be signed in with your student ID and password. So if you're clicking on this link from Google Classroom, it should work pretty easily. And since I have multiple accounts on the same computer, I have to make sure to always click this one. You might see this same kind of thing if more than one person in your family uses the computer that you're using. And let's see, who was that just came in? Good morning, Uresli. Okay, so I called this web page on my website Every Step. This will be linked in Google Classroom, but let me show you the other way to get here in case the Google Classroom assignment gets buried. If you go to trojanart.com, go to the links page and select Every Step. This is a list of every project we've done so far, and I put project and process because some of these are part of the process that aren't necessarily worth points. And I put today's date on here. So once again, just as a reminder and as a review, excuse me, this message is being recorded, but I'm going to go ahead and read through some of these. So the very first thing we did back on the first week of school was we created and shared our Google site, and that was worth 5 points. So if you noticed, I put in bold the dates, and then I put in bold the number of points that it was worth. So everything we've done so far is worth points. Now this one doesn't have points because it's part of this assignment. So after you created and shared your site, this is the link that you clicked on to share your website. The next thing we started doing was we created a Google slide presentation called Daily Doodles. Just the creation of the Daily Doodle slideshow is worth 5 points. Next thing we started doing was adding pages to your Google site and arranging some of them as submenus. Each one of these blue links will go to the video, which is a YouTube video that shows you what that did. So what this is going to help me to do is when students are behind in their work, or if they come in late, sometimes students will come in the middle of the semester or the middle of the quarter. Now I've got a checklist of everything we've done, and it's linked to the video. So each one of your daily doodles, just drawing it was worth 5 points. Remember that as you're drawing it, you're taking pictures of the step-by-step process. So far we've done these 5. Then we did the one that I'm calling Mermouse and Anemone. And then the one called Two Scaries. Those were videos actually from last spring, but I added them this week because I was having a difficult time talking with the surgery that I had. So everything's outlined in here. From 9/14 to 9/18, you photographed and uploaded the 5 daily doodles to your Google slideshow. So I'm giving you 5 points for each one of those uploads and placements in your Google slideshow. Adding interactivity to your slides, that was worth 5 points. So when you put those little triangle shapes that we use for forward and backward buttons, that was worth 5 points. Adding an index to your Google Slides was also worth 5 points. So, and this is something that you're going to update on a regular basis as you add more slides. We're probably going to have 2 different Google slideshows, one for each month or one for each half of the quarter, because otherwise it's going to get pretty unwieldy. Colorizing your cartoons in Photopia. I'm going to give you 10 points for each one of these. This particular link is a 32-minute video. So what I generally do is the work that we do on a daily basis is worth, in my estimation, 10 points. So it'll be really easy going forward to try and have an understanding of how my point grading system works. Opening your daily doodles from your Google Drive into Photopia and colorizing them. I'm giving you 10 points each of these as I see them pop up on your Google slideshow, which will be embedded in your Google site. And again, there's a video up here somewhere that shows adding pages to your Google site and also adding your Google slideshow to your Google site. And if I'm going to run back through these links this afternoon to make sure that everything is in there. It's definitely all on Google Classroom, but it might not necessarily be listed here. So I also put an area down here for next week. One of the things I asked you to do early on was to create a folder in your Google Drive and share it with me. That original thing was worth 5 points. But this actually, there's a listing here, and I'm going to create a video on this that shows you, we talked about folder hierarchy. So this symbol represents Google Drive. Inside there, there's a 7th or 8th grade folder. Inside that 8th grade folder, here's your art folder, and here's how it's named. Inside this art folder, there's going to be a series of projects, and then there's going to be information inside each of these projects. Notice the little asterisk here on each one of these little documents that are also inside here. The research is any images that you used that we're going to be drawing. So you're going to save those images, and the little asterisks represent images. So which are files inside your research folder and also inside here. And this is the naming convention. So for instance, this is just an example. Daily Doodle 0918A. This would be the first photo that you take of the basic structure of the cartoon, underscore your first initial last name, underscore what grade you're in. So this naming convention, I'm gonna do a video later on today because I just uploaded all of my Google Doodles from last week, or not Google Doodles, but Daily Doodles from last week. And I'm gonna do a video on how to name each one of them inside of your Google Drive folders, and also how to move things around inside your Google Drive folder. The reason I'm showing you how to do this is because as these projects start piling up, we're going to have a lot of information in our Google Drive, and you want to be able to get to it quickly. So that's a lot of information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to stop the video. Okay, so there's 175 points represented here so far. We've been through 4 weeks of school. And one thing I want you to understand is you can get credit, you can get full credit for an assignment all the way up to a couple of days before the end of school, or the end of the quarter. And I actually wrote that in here. So a quick calculation of the work so far is 175 points worth of work. Points will be added and earned at full credit. And when I say at full credit, that means if you did a good job at it. Don't just sort of throw something together and go, okay, I did it. But I will accept work up until a few days before the end of each quarter. So 2 or 3 days before the end of the quarter, you'll know what your grade is in the class. And if there's any last minute adjustments, we can do that. But generally speaking, a few days before the end of the quarter, we start to get working on the next quarter's assignments. So I am going to once again stop sharing and stop recording. So once again, let me share my screen. I'm going to go to Photopia. Oh, actually, let's open up a drawing and do it from there. So let's go to Drive. Mr. Wing's rooms. I have this organized by rooms because in the past year I've had 3 different assignments. I was at CPMA up until October of last year, and then I went to Stanley Middle School for the rest of last year. So Stanley Middle School is down here, and then I've got the most recent one is Clark Middle School, which I hope I get to stay at for a while. And then 8th grade is the folder I've set up for that. Art student, Art a student, Daily Doodles. This is also a good example of setting up or showing how the hierarchy works. As soon as my computer starts working. The quick answer to your question, Contessa, is that there is not a paint bucket tool, but let me show you a better way to do this. And it's a little bit tricky, but I think you'll get it. So let me take a relatively simple character like this guy. I'm going to preview him. And then I'm going to click this down arrow here and select Photopia. So I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to call this one color because I'm not going to ink this one first. Then the way you do this, there's a couple of different ways to do it. If you click on the background layer, and then you use the magic wand tool, you can select an area inside like this, and it didn't select. No, don't want to do that. Okay, let me try this one more time. Normally, if you click the magic wand tool and click somewhere, oh, there you go. Okay, see those that little dotted line? That means that that entire area is selected. So then what you do is you click on the color, the foreground color, choose a color. Let's make him purple because he looks kind of like Barney. Click OK, and then go to Edit, Fill, Foreground Color, OK. Object must be rasterized first. Okay, let's try to rasterize him. Not quite sure what that means. Let's add another layer. Maybe if I combine these 2 layers, it will allow me to raster. I'm not sure what rasterizing the layer means. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do anyway. Never mind that last step. So after you've got the area selected, click back on the color layer, and then you can fill it. So it's going to get a little tricky because there's places in here that you can select with the magic wand tool. And I'm not sure. I'm going to hold the shift key down and continue clicking in here. So if you see that this big, oh, I see why. Jeepers. This is, as I said, this is where it gets a little tricky. I have to click the background again, then use the magic wand tool. Hold the shift key down and select other areas, everything that I want, and you'll see that it's a little bit cumbersome because you have to get all these little weird spots in here too. The other keyboard shortcut for doing this is hold for the foreground color. If you hold the Alt key down on your keyboard and hit the backspace key, oops, Keep forgetting to go up to the color layer. Hold the Alt key down and hit the backspace key. It'll also fill it so that you don't have to come up here every time and go edit fill. Also, if you have, depending on what your other keyboard shortcuts are, it says here Shift F5. So if you're on a Windows machine, I'm going to go back to my background. I'm going to deselect everything by doing Control D. And then I'm going to continue selecting areas, holding the Shift key down. A little tiny, I'm not sure if it'll select this area. Some of this you're going to have to paint by hand because the areas are kind of small. There's a space there also. And then always remember to click back up on the color because that's the one thing I forgot. And you can continue doing it. Oops, let me do one more thing. Remember to save this. Since I'm here, I'm going to show you this process even though it shows on another video. I'm going to click File. Oops. Yeah. File. Publish online to Photoshop document. After it publishes, it's going to open up another tab. I'm going to click one time here and copy this. Right mouse click copy. Then I'm going to go into my Daily Doodles folder. And I should have somewhere in here. I haven't started one for this one. So I'm inside my Daily Doodles folder, inside my Art 2 8th grade folder. I'm going to click New, Google Docs, blank document. And I'm going to paste this in here, but I want to call it September 25th, Photopia color. And you can put any sort of naming convention that you want in here. And I'm going to actually call this number 1. Because as I showed in a previous video, you might want to save the steps. So with the number 1 selected here, I'm going to click the link and paste in that Photopia link and apply it. So then I can close all this stuff because I don't need it. Because I've got it here. And I'm going to call this Photopia links. So then if I go, if you want to show me the way your work is going, every time you come in here and open up this file, again, I'm going to click here, click the magic wand tool, which is underneath this one. And I'm going to select his belly and his toes. I'm holding the Shift key down to select these different areas. I'm going to do his horns. I'm going to go up to the color file, change this to a darker color purple, click OK, hold down the Alt key and backspace. And I don't like that one, let's make it green instead. Oh, that's right, because Barney's green. Green and purple, right?
You're not sharing.
Oh, I'm not sharing! Drat! I'm so sorry. Let me start over. Let's see. Oh, what a bummer. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get back to this. Let me share. I apologize for that. Okay, so what I did was in another exercise, I showed you how to create a Photopia links file. So this link goes to my current progress on this file. So if I want to color the eyebrows and horns and belly and other stuff in here all at the same time, I'm going to click on background. I'm going to use the magic wand tool. And then I'm going to select things by holding the Shift key down. And remember, this is all within the background layer. And as I said a minute ago, some of this stuff you can sort of see it didn't completely select everything here. So you're going to have to go back over that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make his belly and his horns and his toenails this green color. Click OK. Go back. You have to make sure to do this on the color layer. Hold the Alt key down on your keyboard and hit backspace. Now, if you're working on an iPad to do this, Contessa, you're going to have to use the Edit Fill menu and then fill it with the foreground color. So there is no paint bucket tool, but this one approximates it pretty well. So in order to get down into these details, especially like this line around here, you can see the little white line. I'm going to do Control+ a couple of times. If you hold down the space bar, it turns into a little hand, and you can move the image around like this. And you're not actually moving the image, you're moving the view. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to click this purple color. And I'm going to use the paintbrush, and I'm going to just go in here and start painting all this stuff, making sure that you're on the color layer. Notice how it's going over the black line here? That's because I haven't added the ink layer to this. So it's covering up the image that's underneath it. I'm not super concerned about that at this point, but I can erase it if I need to. And also, as I said, when you see this little white line between the inking layer and this layer, after you add that inking layer to this, this will all go away, because there's actually, you should overlap it a little bit. And the best way to do this, if you want to do the color first, is at some point, after you've got the color mostly dialed in here, you can turn the color layer off and add another layer and call it ink. And then on the inking layer, you don't necessarily have to use black. I like to use a dark color variation of the color instead of black, because it gives for a it gives for a richer drawing. But now I can carefully go over this. And as I carefully go over this, because this layer is above the color layer, when I turn the color layer on, you can see that it's covered up. So everything that is black on here, I will probably color in this dark purple color. Then again, I'm going to hit Control-0 to see the whole page, and I'm going to turn this layer back on. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Publish Online, PSD. It's going to open another layer or another window. Excuse me. Gotta get some water. Then I'm going to click one time at the address up here and copy it. And then go back to my Photopia links and add another bracket and the number 2, because this is going to show my progress. The keyboard shortcut for adding a link is Control-K, and then I'm just going to paste the link in there. So once again, when you save this file, this Photopia links file, you don't need to have any of this other stuff open. Because from within this file, since this is inside the folder that you've shared with me, I can go into your folder and click each one of these links and look at the process of your of your projects. You can see on this one where I added the purple down here, and I kind of did it sloppy, but I can fix that later. So I'm going to stop sharing because I've given you guys tons of information today. Did that answer any of your questions?